Hello, grammar geeks and poetry peeps. You've just stepped into the Eloquent Explorers, where English isn't just a subject, it's a roller coaster of puns, poems, and powerful prose. Today, we bring to you the first chapter of the CBSE prescribed main course book for grade 12 English, which is Flamingo. Ironically, the first chapter of your session is titled The Last Lesson. This is written by Alphonse Daudet. In this video, we are going to discuss a lot of literary aspects related to the story along with the detailed explanation of the story. So make sure you stay tuned till the very end. Let us now take a quick sneak peek as to what all we will be discussing. As I told you, it is going to be a jam-packed video with all sorts of literary aspects such as themes, moods, style, literary devices, main characters, and the message, the important message that the story provides. Along with that, we are going to begin with about the author, the setting of the story, introduction to the story, explanation which will be line by line. So this will be beneficial for every student interested in this chapter. And then we will also take a quick recap. So make sure that you watch the video till the end in order to understand the video completely. And this video, I assure you, is going to help you to write answers, to attempt MCQs, and everyone who's preparing for exams such as KVS and AWES, Army Welfare Education Society. This video is a whole package for you. All right. So now let's get to know our author. Alphonse Daudet, born in 1840 and lived and died in 1897, was a renowned French novelist and short story writer of the 19th century. He belonged to the realist movement in European literature, which focused on depicting everyday life and ordinary people with emotional depth. In his stories, you will see that he projects the reality that was going on around him in the European countries. All right. His works often reflect patriotism, as we will see in this story, regional culture, and the impact of historical events on common people. All these will be depicted in the story as we'll go through it. You will understand how all these are reflected in the story. He was born in Nimes, in France, and he began his career as a school teacher before moving to Paris to pursue writing. He gained fame for capturing the sensitivity of rural life, particularly in southern France and regions like Alsace and Provence. The last lesson, please remember, this is a very important point. Okay, this one is a very important point. So make sure you put a star mark or maybe note it down somewhere. So this is specifically, if you see from the exams perspective, this becomes a more important point. All right. So now this last lesson is actually a part of his short story collections, which have been titled as Conte du Lundi, which is translated to Monday Tales. Okay, this was written in 1873 and has been inspired by the Franco-Prussian War. Just a moment. Yeah. Let us now discuss the setting of the story. The story is located in a small village in Alsace, that is in France. Time period is the Franco-Prussian War. Prussia is a country that at that time in its peak was made up of several countries that included Germany, Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Denmark, Czech Republic, Belgium, and and France. Okay. So now during this Franco-Prussian War in 1871, German took over the regions of France and they banned the French language. Okay. Now, this story is a setting of emotional and political tension due to occupation of the French teacher, Mr. Hamel and M. Hamel, and other teachers and other people as well. So, we in this story will read one aspect of uh, how a person who has given a majority of his life to teaching a language now has to leave the profession and uh, the work that he loved so much and the country that he loved so much, because now that language, that very own language, has been banned in their own village. Let me now give you a quick introduction to the story. um, this story revolves around M. Hamel and little Franz, and has been narrated from Franz's perspective. Okay, Franz, a little boy, is the story begins by showing us that he is late to school yet again, and he is very scared to reach the school and counts on the commotion that is generally there of the children reciting their lessons and the teacher teaching them to get into the class without seeing. However, as he passes through the main hall, the city hall, and uh, he sees a very peculiar reaction from people. Okay, one of the people from there even calls out to tell him that he won't be late today. Franz thinks that he is being made fun of and hence just rushes off from there, just wanting to reach the school without being noticed. Okay, however, when he reaches the school, he finds out that everything is not how it's supposed to be. There is no commotion, there is absolute silence, and the teacher, M. Hamel, is at his place wrapping the ruler. Okay? Now, Franz was counting on this, uh, counting on people on the noise that the students would be making, the other students would be making, and counting on the teacher who would be busy trying to quieten them down, trying to settle them down. He was counting on all that situation, gets even more scared and very in and gets embarrassed when he has to walk into the class while everybody looks at him. He is still confused because he is unaware as to why there is this sudden change. He then notices that M. Hamel is dressed, he is not dressed as the way he usually does. He's wearing different kind of clothes, the clothes that he generally wears during when he during Sunday church. Okay, and that makes him yet more confused. He also notices that the last benches have been occupied and there are older people that never came to school. Now, this little confused, perplexed Franz finds his seat towards the end of the classroom and quietly settles down. Now, as M. Hamel gets up to begin the lecture, that's where he realizes why there's this sudden change. Because M. Hamel tells the class that this lesson is supposed to be the last lesson. Why so? He explains because Germany has taken over France, these villages of France, Alsace and Lorraine, and here in this little village of Alsace, this school, in this school now, only German will be taught. There will be no French classes, and hence M. Hamel has to now leave the village and has to relocate, and therefore this will be the last lesson of their beloved, their own mother tongue, their own language. Now, this comes as a shock to Franz, and also now he understands why there is this change in the environment today. There is this change in, and why he's seeing a lot of people that are not supposed to be in the school, the older people. Now he understands, and now finally, through the story, he comes to a realization that how important the language their own mother tongue is, and how procrastination, putting things, uh, on hold to do it the next day, or to do it the next hour, or to do it some other time, leads you to a point in time where you regret not doing what you ever you were supposed to do. So this is a little introduction, or you can say a quick summary of the story. After this, we are going to dive deep into the story, read line by line, and understand the meaning of each and every paragraph, each and every line. So make sure now you have your book in your hands, you have paper, you have a notebook, you have pen, pencil available with you, so that you can write down the meanings of the difficult words, underline, highlight the important points in the story. And after that, we are also going to discuss the literary aspects of the story. So stay tuned till the very end. Now I hope you have your pencils in your hands and your books in front of you. I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of a scolding, especially because Hamel had said that he would question us on participles, and I did not know the first word about them. Now, who is this I? This I refers to Franz, this little boy who was late to school yet again, and again he had not completed his homework. He had not done what he was supposed to do. For a moment, I thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. It was so warm, so bright. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, the Prussian soldiers were drilling. Now, this child, Franz, he started very late for school that morning. He was yet again late to school. And now he was in great dread. He was really scared of the scolding that he would get, because Hamel had said that he would question in the previous class, Hamel had given them the homework to learn participles, which is grammar, and he would then in this class, in that day's class, he would question them on those participles. Franz, as always, was very careless and did not pay heed. He did not do his homework. He did not learn his participles. So, to avoid that scolding, for a moment, he thought of bunking the school. He thought of skipping the school and going out of doors, spending the day out of doors, because it was such a warm, bright day. The birds were chirping at the edge of the woods, and in the open field back of the sawmill, there was a sawmill again, and in the open field that was at the backside of this sawmill, he saw that Prussian soldiers were drilling. They were practicing. They were marching and practicing for their upcoming wars. This point tells us that these regions of France have already been taken over by Prussia. Okay. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles. But I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. Now he says that everything that he could see, the birds chirping, the soldiers drilling, all that was very tempting. It was all very interesting for him to watch, than having to recite the rules of participles which he had not learned. So, but he says that I had the strength to resist. He says that even though it was so tempting, he had that strength to resist, to not fall prey to that temptation, to not give up everything, to not give up school and just stay there. Okay. Therefore, he cleared off his mind and hurried off to school. When I passed the town, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The lost battle, the draft, the orders of the commanding officer, and I thought to myself without stopping, what can be the matter now? Now he tells us that there was this bulletin board in the town hall, and All the news at that time, there were no TVs, no WhatsApp, no mobile phones, no YouTube. So all the news would come from a bulletin board on which they would see that whatever battles they had lost, they had notices of those battles. They had the drafts, the orders that came from the commanding officer, and he saw that there was a crowd in front of that bulletin board. Now, to himself, he wondered without stopping. He did not stop because he was already very late to school. So, without stopping, he thought to himself, what could be the matter now? What bad news had come out? Then, as I hurried by as fast as I could go, the blacksmith, the Wachter, was there. Blacksmith Wachter was there, who, with his apprentice, reading the bulletin, called after me. Don't go so fast, bub. You'll get to your school in plenty of time. I thought he was making fun of me, and reached Hamel's little garden, all out of breath. Now, as he hurried fast as he could go, he ran from there, crossing this bulletin board and this group of people. There was this blacksmith named Wachter who was there with his apprentice. Apprentice is a person who practices and you can say who learns the skills under a skilled person like a blacksmith or a sculptor. All right. So this Wachter was there with his apprentice, and they were also reading the bulletin. He called out after him that don't run so fast. He says he tells this little bub is an aggressive or rude way of addressing a boy or a man. Okay, so he calls out to Franz and tells him that he does not need to run that fast, and that he'll get to school in time. Now Franz thought that he was already late to school, and that is why this Wachter, was making fun of him. So, without stopping, he reached Hamel's little garden where his school was situated. He reached there all out of breath because he was rushing so fast. Now, usually, when school began, there was a great bustle which could be heard out in the street. The opening and closing of desks. Now, this paragraph tells us that usually what is the situation that happens, what is the normal situation that Franz was expecting. Okay, so usually that this bustle, this loud noise um, of the school, of the students in the school, was heard out in the street. Okay, people could hear out from far away. Now what all they could hear would be the opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison, very loud, with our hands covered over our ears. Should take a little, you know, hold on. Okay. Hands over our ears to understand better, and the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. Okay, so usually what he could hear, what people in the street, including Franz or anybody in the street, would hear would be the bustle. Bustle is the busy, noisy, when people move in a busy, in a noisy way to create noise. Okay, so that could be heard out in the street itself. What all? The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison. The people would repeat their lessons in unison, the students. It would be very loud, and the children would cover their ears with their hands so that they could understand what they are speaking. They could understand that better. And the teacher's ruler that the teacher used to carry would be rapping on the table. Okay, it would be the teacher would be hitting this ruler on the table very hard. Okay, so that people could pay attention to the teacher. But now it was all so still. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen. But of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. Now Franz thinks to himself, he was counting on this noise, on this hustle and bustle, on the students moving around in a frenzy, moving around here and there, teacher being busy with these students. He was counting on all that. He was thinking that all that would help him get to his seat without being seen. But, of course, that day, everything had to be as quiet as a Sunday morning when there's no school. Okay, so everything was so quiet and so still. Through the window, I saw my classmates already in their places, and Hamel walking up and down with his terrible ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. But nothing happened. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you." Now, um, because he was the last person to enter, Franz was thinking that he would definitely get scolded today because everything was so quiet. And now he had to go in there, and everybody would see him walking into the class and being the last person. And through the window, he saw that everybody else was in their place already, and they were very quiet, sitting and waiting for something. He also saw his teacher, M. Hamel, walking up and down, walking through the classroom, up and down, with this terrible iron ruler under his arm. Now he had to get in, so he had to open the door and come in. He had to go in there into the classroom in front of everybody. Now he says that you can imagine how he blushed. Okay. He tells us that we can imagine how he blushed and how frightened he was that now he would get best, the biggest scolding ever and everybody would watch it. He was embarrassed. But to his surprise, nothing happened. M. Hamel saw him and very kindly, he did not even raise his voice. Very kindly, he asked little Franz to get to his place very quickly, and he told him that they were about to begin without him. Now Franz is a little astonished. He's unsure of what's happening. I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright, did I see that our teacher had on his beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt. Okay, please remember what he was wearing that day. Beautiful green coat, frilled shirt, the little black silk cap, all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. Okay, so he was wearing his finest clothes, his beautiful green clothes, his frilled shirt. Frilled is something that is decorated with frills, ruffles, or beads. Okay, and little black silk cap, which was all embroidered. Now he's wearing his best clothes that he never wore except when there was an inspection or during prize days. Okay, besides, the whole school seemed so strange and solemn. Solemn means sad. Okay, so the whole school felt very strange to Franz. He was already astonished. He was already a little shocked as to why everybody was in the places when everybody was supposed to make noise. And so he had that strange feeling coming to him that something was wrong and everything felt sad. But the thing that surprised me most was to see on the back benches that were always empty the village people sitting quietly like ourselves. Now, who all were there? Old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several others beside. Now, the thing that surprised him the most, that was the most different on that day, was that those back benches that were always empty, they were today filled with village people, with older people that were sitting quietly like the students. Who all were there? Old Hauser with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, and my apologies. The former mayor, the former postmaster. Former is the one who was there before the current mayor. The mayor, the ruling has now been changed. The people who are going to rule has now been changed. So the older mayor, the one who was there before this new one, the former postmaster, and several other people were there on those back benches. Everybody looked sad. Hauser had brought an old primer. Primer is a grammar book that that children use. Okay, especially it's a basic reader for people who are just beginning to start reading. For children specifically, that primer is used. Okay, it's a book for primary children that learn to that are beginning to read. Okay, that are learning to read. So old Hauser had brought this old primer with him, which was thumbed at the edges. Thumbed means that it was so old that it was wrinkly and it was wearing off from the edges. Okay, like a very old book that was almost tearing off. Okay, and he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages. So he held open the book, and his spectacles were placed on this book. Okay, his great spectacles were placed on his book, and his book was placed on his knees. I hope we are clear till here. If you have any doubts, any questions, please feel free to use the comment box to write down your queries, or maybe even the chat box that you can see or to your right. You can use to ask your queries and I will answer them. Now, I'm assuming that we are clear till here. However, I will still respond to your comments if there are any with any confusion. Okay, let's move on. While I was wondering all about it all, Hamel mounted his chair, and in the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me, said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools, Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive." Now, while Franz was still wondering about why were all these people here and why everyone was sad, Hamel sits on his chair, and in that serious tone and that gentle tone that he had used to to talk to Franz, to tell him to get to his seat when he had come late, he uses that same sad, serious, gentle tone to tell them, to announce that this lesson, that lesson that he was going to give them, would be the last lesson, was the last lesson of French, the language, of their own language. And the order had come from Berlin, the capital. It had come from Berlin that now in schools of Alsace and Lorraine, only German will be taught as the language. Very sadly, he tells them that the new master of German comes in the next day, and that lesson was their last French lesson. Hence, he wanted them to be very attentive. What a thunderclap these words were to me. Thunderclap, the sound of the thunder. So these words, that this was his last French lesson for his lifetime, came to him as a shock, as a thunderclap, as a thunder. Okay? Oh, the wretches! That was what they had put up at the town hall. My last French lesson? Why, I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there? Then? Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons, for seeking birds' eggs or going sliding on the Saar. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar and my history of the saints were old friends now that I couldn't give up. And M. Hamel too, the idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his ruler and how cranky he was. So now he exclaims, "Oh, the wretches! Wretches are poor, unhappy people." Okay? So he exclaims that, "Oh, those unhappy people, those people, that's what they had put up at the town hall. That this lesson is going to be their last French lesson." And now he starts to realize that he did not even know how to write properly. And now he would not learn anymore. He's not supposed to learn French anymore. He hardly knew the language. Now he realizes how sorry he was for not learning his lessons when he was supposed to, and instead wasting his time seeking for birds' eggs or going sliding on the Saar. Those books that had seemed like a nuisance, had seemed like a problem, a trouble to him, those books that were so heavy to carry, the grammar, the history of saints, they were now old friends that he couldn't give up. And M. Hamel, now that he was going away, that he would not see him ever again, that made him realize, that made him forget all about his ruler and how bad tempered M. Hamel was. Now Franz realizes what he had missed out by not paying attention to his classes, by bunking his classes on a regular basis, by paying more attention to things that were not as important as learning this language. And he realizes that how he had been so disrespectful to his teacher, that he realizes that even though his teacher was cranky, he was a bad tempered, he realizes that he would not see that his teacher ever again. He would not learn his language, his mother tongue, ever again.
Poor man! It was in honor of this last lesson that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes. And now I understood why the old men of the village were sitting there in the back of the room. It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to the school more. It was their way of thanking our master for his 40 years. How many? 40 years, remember? 40 years of faithful service and of showing the respect for the country that was theirs no more. Now, Franz finally realizes that it was because of this last lesson that M. Hamel was dressed so finely, that he had put on his fine Sunday clothes. Okay, how have they put this? His clothes have been described as fine Sunday clothes. Okay, so in order to commemorate his day, to make himself feel special, okay, and to to reminisce, to be able to capture, to be able to hold on to this day and everything, he was dressed in his fine Sunday clothes. And Franz tells us that now he finally understood why the old men of the village were sitting there at the back of the room. Why were these back benches occupied by these old elderly people, the other people of the village? like old Hauser, the former postmaster, the former mayor, and other villagers. Okay, it was because he tells us that they were also sorry. They were also sad. They were also upset that they had not attended the school more. They had also, in the past 40 years of faithful service of M. Hamel, they had also skipped school. They had also prioritized other works, other things, maybe leisure, maybe enjoyment, and their jobs, earning more than they had prioritized it more than to learn, than to know how to write their language, how to speak it properly. Okay, so it was their way of thanking this teacher, this noble teacher who had given 40 years of his life to teach people French. It was their way of thanking him for his service. And it was their way of showing the respect for the country that was not theirs anymore, that had now been captured by Germany. Right? While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name called. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule for the participle all through, very loud, clear, and without one mistake? Now, while Franz was thinking about everything, he was trying to process everything that's going on about this lesson being his last French lesson, and that he will not be able to see his French teacher anymore. The service that his French teacher had provided to the class, to their village, to their country, and how people have come out to pay him respect, to pay him tribute on his last day. All that, while he was thinking all that, he suddenly hears his name being called out. Okay, which brings him back to the class, and he realizes that now it was his turn to recite those fearful, to recite, to speak out those unpleasant rules of for the participle that he was supposed to learn as the homework that was given the day before. But he did not. He had not learnt the lesson. He had not learnt those rules for participles. And then he thinks to himself that what would he had given? He would have given anything that he had to be able to recite those rules at that moment, very loud and clear and without any mistake. Okay, so he regrets not having learnt that lesson at that time. He regrets not having learnt the participles before coming to school, and he regrets not being able to recite, to pay his to pay tribute to the hard work of M. Hamel in this way. That would have been the best gift for him. That would have been the best tribute to him had Franz been able to recite the rules of participles properly. But because he was not, because he hadn't learned, he was not able to. But I got mixed up on the first words and stood there holding to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. He was not even able to recite one full rule. When right when he started, he got mixed up. He got scared. He couldn't. His heart started beating loudly, and he could not look up. He did not have the courage. He did not have the guts to look up to M. Hamel, to look him in the eye, because he was very sorry, that he was very regretful that he had not done what his teacher, what his wonderful teacher had asked him to do. I heard M. Hamel say to me, I won't scold you, little Franz. You must feel bad enough. See how it is? Every day we have said to ourselves, ah, I have plenty of time. I'll learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we've come out? And that's the great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. Now here you can see that he's referring to the people of Alsace as the name itself, as Alsace. Okay? And has personified the place by using the pronoun she. All right. So remember that, and as we discuss the literary devices in the next slides, upcoming slides, I will elaborate you on these two. All right. Now, those fellows out there will have the right to say to you, how is it you pretend to be Frenchmen, yet you can neither speak nor write your own language? But you're not the worst, poor little Franz. We've all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. Okay? So now, because Franz was not able to recite the rules of participle, and M. Hamel knew, and M. Hamel understood that he had not learnt his lesson, Franz was expecting a scolding, but M. Hamel tells him that he was not going to scold him that day. Okay? He speaks, he says that Franz, you must be feeling bad already, realizing that this is your last lesson. He makes Franz see that that is how everybody in Alsace was. That everybody would put things for tomorrow, put learning for tomorrow. Every day they would think that they have tomorrow, they have plenty of time. And that thinking, that procrastination, that putting off things, that to the next day or to the next hour or to the next year, that's what has brought all of them to a point that they neither know how to write the language nor do they know how to speak it well. So this is what M. Hamel says. He makes everybody realize that this is the problem with that village, Alsace, the village in Alsace and Alsace as a whole. This is the problem, that everybody there puts learning to tomorrow, puts it off, thinking that they have a lot of time. But that got them to a place where, being Frenchmen, outsiders will now be able to mock them. They will be able to tell them that, they will be able to say to them that, how could you be Frenchmen? How could you be French when you don't even know how to speak or write your own language? How can you call yourselves French? How can you show your patriotism for your country, your love for your country, when you can neither speak the language nor write it? But then he says that, Franz, you're not the worst. Franz is just a little boy. Okay? So he says that Franz is not the worst. Everybody in this room and everybody in this village and in this country has something to blame, has a great deal to blame themselves. Because it's not only little Franz's mistake that he does not know the language. It's the mistake of every villager, every person of that village, that they do not know their own language. They cannot write, they cannot communicate well in their language, in their own language. All right? Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at the mills so as to have a little more money. And I have been to blame also. Have I not sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? Now, even M. Hamel is regretful. He also realizes that he says that it's not just little boys' fault. It's not only the children's fault. The adults are more at fault here, because they were not eager to let the students learn, to let their children learn, to let their children come to school. Instead, they would have them work. They would have them uh, work on a farm or at the mill so that they could earn a little more money. They did not pay attention to their education. And M. Hamel himself says that he is to be blamed as well, because he also often sent the children, he also often sent Franz and other children to flower his plants, to water his flowers, instead of making them learn their lessons, instead of asking them over and over again to learn their lessons. So he is to be blamed as well. And there have been times when he wanted to go to fishing and he gave them a day off. So he is to be equally blamed that they do not know their lessons, they do not know their participles, they do not know how to write their language. Is it clear? Then, from one thing to another, M. Hamel went to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, the most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it. Just a moment. Yeah. And never forget it. Because when people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they have the key to their prison. Okay, very important point here, and this is going to make you, um, you know, this point gives you the entire crux of the chapter, and also this point tells you how important a language is, specifically during times of war, when people, when different countries enslave, when people, when different um rulers, when different authorities, they put other people to as slaves, they capture other people. Okay, it is their own language, it is their own native language that helps them to stay true to their country, to stay patriotic to their country, and it is very important, it is a very important tool that can help them free themselves. Just imagine you are, let's say you are a French person, okay, and you have been enslaved by someone who does not know how to speak French. Okay, let's say there are two or three of you. All right. Now, if there is someone um, who does not know how to speak your language, but they have captured you, you can easily hatch a plan in your own language without them understanding a word, without them getting to know what you've planned. So that is like holding a key to a prison. Okay. So that is what M. Hamel tries to explain to them, that they should never ever forget their language, no matter if they have to learn German. They are not to replace French with German. They are to hold fast to their language so that during troubling times, during times that they will need to unite, it is their language that will keep them united. It is their own native language that will help them free themselves from slavery. All right? Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed so easy. So easy! I think, too, that I had never listened so carefully, and that he had never explained everything with so much patience. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away, and to put it all into our heads at one stroke. So now, it being, see, just try to relate that, let's say you're doing something for the last time. Let's say it's your last session of the school. Okay. And you know that after this session, you will not be attending those classes. You will not be sitting there on those benches, being lectured by those teachers, and being there with your friends, or following the same schedule that you have followed throughout these years. Now, that moment is going to be something very precious. And in that moment, you're going to try to take in everything possible. Okay, you're going to try to absorb everything. Every lecture will feel easy. Every lecture will seem easy. Every teacher will appear to you, or you'll see a different kind of person in every teacher. Every teacher will try to give their best so that you can absorb most. Okay, every teacher that teaches you on that last day will try to see you all and try to put their best, and you will try to put your best effort and try to grasp everything possible. All right. So similarly, this is what these people are going through, this emotion, that now after this moment, they will not be able to listen to M. Hamel. The students will not be able to listen to M. Hamel, and M. Hamel will not be able to teach these students. That moment, that realization has made them all focus and give more efforts than they would usually have. Okay, it's like when you know you're about to lose something, the value of that thing becomes more, right? It becomes more valuable. Similarly, that is what these people are going through. M. Hamel, as well as the students and the villagers, they're finally recognizing the value of their language teacher, of these classes. Okay, and they are very attentive. And Franz realizes that he can understand. Grammar is not difficult. M. Hamel is also teaching them in the best way possible. Like the poor man is trying to give everything at once so that they can always stay true to their language and they can always hold fast. So he's trying his best. After the grammar lesson, after the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day, M. Hamel had new copies for us, written in beautiful round hand. France, Alsace, France, Alsace. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desks. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work, and how quiet it was. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. Once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid any attention to them, not even the littlest ones, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks, as if that was French too. On the roof, the pigeons cooed very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German? Even the pigeons? Now, what happens is that after the grammar session, they had a lesson in writing where they had to practice writing. Everybody was given new copies that M. Hamel had made um, on his own. Okay, he had made them for these these children, and in beautiful round hand, in a beautiful handwriting, he had written on them, France, Alsace, France, Alsace. They looked like little flags that were floating in the schoolroom. Okay, the little French flags, and that hung from the top of the desks, from the rod at the top of their desks. These notebooks were hung. All right. Now, Franz says that one must have uh, noticed. One must come and see that if people should have come and seen how quiet that class was, and how everybody set to work immediately as soon as they were given the notebooks. Everybody started writing. The only sound that came was the scratching of the pens over paper. Everybody was so engrossed in writing, everybody wanted to give their best that day, that they did not even care when some beetles flew in. Nobody paid attention to them, not even the little ones. They were tracing their fish hooks as if that was French too. These little ones who were just learning to start writing, they were making fish hooks. Okay, something like this. They were making their fish hooks, practicing their fish hooks, as if that was French. They were also paying tribute to M. Hamel, to their language. And then on the roof, the pigeons cooed very low. The pigeons could also understand that the environment, the situation was sad, and they cooed. They made the sound very low, very softly. And then Franz thought to himself, will they make them sing in German? Even the pigeons? So who are they here? They are the German authorities. Okay, the you can say the German soldiers and the German leaders. All right. So now Franz thinks that will these pigeons, they also be made to sing in German, will they also be taken? Will their language also be taken away? Will their freedom also be taken away? So here, this sentence, this statement is actually a symbolism. This language is being used as a symbolism of for freedom. Okay, language is a symbolism for freedom. All right. So he's using language as a symbol to indicate that since their freedom was gone, they were supposed to learn German from the next day, and they were supposed to forget about French. But will they capture the pigeons also? Will they forcefully make them stop cooing in their language and make them coo in a different language? That is what Franz was thinking about. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then at another, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little room. Fancy, for 40 years he had been in the same place, with his garden outside the window and his glass in front of him. Just like that. Only the desks and benches had worn smooth. Worn smooth means that because they were used on a daily basis, they had become smooth now. Okay, they had suffered from time and usage, and now they were smoother than they had been when he had first brought them in. The walnut trees in the garden were taller. The hopvine that he had planted himself twined about the windows to the roof. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all. Poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next day. Now, while they were writing, whenever Franz looked up, he saw M. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair. M. Hamel was looking at everything that was there in that room, everything that he had been with, and now would have to part ways after 40 years. Okay, he was trying to absorb everything that he could see in his mind, and and Franz thinks that fancy that he thinks that it's amusing that he had been in that same room for 40 years of his life. He had been in that same place, the same garden outside his window, and the same class in front of him. And that now, just like that, he had to leave it all. He had to append his life, he had to move. He says that everything was the same as it had been for the past 40 years. Only difference was that the benches were now smoother because they were being used every single day. They had worn out, so they were smooth. The walnut trees had grown taller, and the hopvine that he had planted himself it had also grown, and it had now come up to the level of the windows and to the roof. Okay, it had entwined itself, it had wrapped itself around in the windows, and it had reached the roof. So the plants had grown, the wear and tear could be seen, that usage could be seen, but the rest was same as it had been for 40 years. And how this must break his heart. How he must be, how much sad he must be right now at that moment. That all the efforts that he had put in, that all the trees that he had planted that had now grown because he had watered them, the vine that had grown and climbed up to the roof because he had taken care of it. Everything, his house, his classroom, he had to leave it all. Everything that he had stayed in or stayed with for 40 years, he had now to leave it all. He had to hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing all his things because now they had to leave the country the next day. But he had the courage to hear every lesson through to the very end. Okay? But he had the courage to listen to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their ba, be, bi, bo, boo. Down there, at the back of the room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and, holding his primer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. You could see that he, too, was crying. His voice trembled with emotion, and it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. Ah, how well I remember it, that last lesson. Now he talks about Hamel, that even though his heart was breaking, that he had to leave his life that he had built for the past 40 years, he had to leave it all. Yet he had the courage to sit through, to let this every lesson go through and to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, they had a lesson in history, and then the little babies, the little children, chanted their ba, be, bi, bo, boo. These are the first syllables that children learn. Okay, so now Franz realizes that he could also hear old Hauser, who had brought his primer. He had his primer in his hands, and with the children, he also started chanting ba, be, bi, bo, and boo. Okay, so he was basically learning, he was beginning to learn the language. All right, and he was, you could see that he was crying. He was emotional, and his voice was shaking with emotion. It was funny to hear an old man cry, and it was also sad at the same time because this poor man had just started learning, and now he would not get another lesson. This was his first and last lesson in the language. Then Franz exclaims that how well he remembers that last lesson. All at once, the church clock struck 12, signaling that it was the end of the session and it was the end of the last lesson. Then, then the Angelus. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians returning from the drill sounded under our windows. Hamel stood up very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. My friends, he said, I, I, but something choked him. He could not go on. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, he wrote as large as he could, Vive la France. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word he made a gesture to us with his hand. School is dismissed. You may go. Now, finally, when the church clock struck 12, um, at the same time, then the Angelus, and then at the same time, the trumpets of the Prussians who were returning from the practice. These all sounds, the silence was surrounded now by all these sounds. It was destroyed by all these sounds, and signaling that the lesson had come to an end. Now, Hamel, who was very pale, who was very sad, got up from his chair, and Franz says, I never saw him look so tall. Here, tall doesn't mean he suddenly got an extra height. Okay, no. Here, tall means that he could sense, he could feel a different sense of respect for Hamel. He was very respectful of him now. Okay, and then um, Hamel starts to speak. My friends, he starts, and then at I, after saying I, he cannot speak anything because he was choked, because he was so emotional at that time, because he had to now leave his uh, the thing that he had to leave his country and he had to leave teaching the language that he loved so much. He had to leave the country that he loved so much that now he was so emotional he could not go on. He could not speak anything else. So instead, he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and after gathering all his courage, he wrote as large as he could, "Vive la France." That means, "Long live France." Then he stopped. He leaned his head against the wall, and that means he touched his forehead with the wall. And then, without saying anything, he was so emotional, he was so sad that he could not utter a single word after that. He just signaled the the people with his hand, saying that the school was dismissed and now everybody could go. And that was the last lesson. Let's take a quick recap by discussing the important events, or you can say the major events of this story. Okay, the story is set in Alsace during the Franco-Prussian War after the region was captured by Prussia. For your homework, make sure to find out what all countries came in Prussia. Okay. The French language is banned and German is to be taught instead. Little Franz, a student, comes late to school fearing scolding. He finds the atmosphere unusually solemn and serious. Hamel, the teacher, announces this is the last French lesson. Villagers attend the class showing respect for the language and teacher. Hamel gives a heartfelt lecture about the importance of mother tongue. The story ends with Hamel emotionally unable to speak and writing "Vive la France" on the board, which translates to "Long live France." Chapter is clear to you. Let us now discuss the literary aspects that have been used at large in the story. If there has been any confusion, any query, feel free to ask in the comment box. Now let's quickly discuss the themes that have been used. First is love for one's language and culture. Throughout the story, you can see the love that Hamel and the villagers and the students have for their language and their culture. National identity and patriotism has been shown through Hamel and also through the villagers when they have come to attend the class to pay their tribute to the lesson, to the teacher, okay, and to their language. Loss and regret can be seen when Franz realizes that what he's lost by not studying when he was supposed to, by taking it very lightly when he was supposed to actually learn his participles and his grammar and his language. And there is regret in every citizen, in every villager, in that villager's heart, that they did not pay attention to education when they had to, when they were supposed to. Importance of education, colonial oppression. Okay, colonial oppression is because Germany took over France, so now they had to do what the Prussian people wanted. Okay, so that was colonial oppression. They were now oppressed. They were not free to even learn their own language, to speak their own language. Then the power of language as a tool of both freedom and oppression. Okay, so you can see that how language has been depicted as a powerful tool where you can use it either for your freedom or to oppress somebody else. Okay, so if we see in the context of this chapter how French is a symbol of freedom, of a tool for freedom, okay, whereas German has been can be seen as the tool for oppression, okay, because German was being forced upon the people of France, and French was their own language which they were not ready to let go, which they were made to realize is something that they shouldn't let go, because that could be the key to their freedom. That is actually the key to their freedom. All right, So you can see here that how language can be powerful. So power of language is also being discussed as a theme in this story. Next, the tone. The tone is somber. Somber is sad, reflective, and patriotic. It shifts from casual and light-hearted to serious and emotional. So you can see that when we start the chapter, it is a little casual. Franz is getting late, and then it gradually turns to serious and then emotional. Mood is nostalgic because people are now reminiscing. They are all recollecting that uh, how, how they had spent the years and how they had neglected their own language. Okay, it is emotional. Also nostalgic because M. Hamel thinks about all the time that he had spent there teaching people, teaching French, and how he recalls what all he had done. Okay, and he uh, feels sad to having to leave that place. Okay, guilt ridden because they did not pay attention to the language, to the education when they should have. And inspiring, it is, the mood is also inspiring because it inspires us to hold on to our own language. All right, and to uh, you can say to pay attention to education. So it is inspiring. It creates empathy for characters and their loss. Style is simple and direct narrative. Okay, it is the first person point of view, which is Franz perspective. Franz has narrated the entire story, hence the use of I has been there, we has been there, because it is first person point of view. It is a realistic tone, and it is very descriptive. Language is very descriptive. You can understand everything that's going on and you can relate to it. Then blend of reportage and emotion. Okay, so the style of writing is a blend of reporting, that this little Franz is recollecting those times, that last lesson, so he's reporting it, and also it is full of emotion. Okay, so it is a blend of reportage and emotion. Literary devices, first is irony. People suddenly value French when it's taken away. Okay, the example you can see here is, it was the last lesson and that suddenly became the most important one. Okay, so you can see the irony in the chapter. The irony is that the people now value their own language now that it is being taken away from them. That is when they realize the value of their own language. Okay, personification, language has been given human qualities. French, the most beautiful language in the world. All right, and also Alsace has been personified as she. Okay, then metaphor. M. Hamel calls language a key to the prison of slavery. So language has key has been used. You can say language is a metaphor for key towards freedom. Okay, for the key to freedom. Then we have imagery. The complete writing is very visual and emotional. There are scenes like classroom silence, Hamel's green coat, villagers on benches. All these are very visual. So imagery has been used. All right. Then symbolism. School is the symbolism for knowledge and lost opportunities. Since now French will be removed and German will be ruling, so those are the lost opportunities that they lost in school to learn their own language. Blackboard with Vive le France is the silent patriotism. Alright. There are others in the chapter, as we have discussed some of them as we have discussed the chapters. These are some examples. Alliteration, blushed and blundered. Okay. Alliteration is when you repeat the first sound. Okay, like blur and blur. Alright, consonant sound. Initial consonant sounds repetition is called alliteration. Next, we know the main characters are Franz. He was a young French schoolboy who was initially careless about his studies. Then M. Hamel, the dedicated and patriotic French teacher. And then there were villagers like Old Hauser and others that symbolized lost respect for language and education. So there were other villagers who have been used as a symbol to show that how they had lost the respect for their language and for education, and how realizing that they would not be able to use their own language has made them understand the value of their own language. Finally, let's discuss the message that the story gives us. First is value and preserve your mother tongue and cultural identity. Second is don't take freedom, education, and language for granted. Third, language is a symbol of sovereignty and unity. Okay? And fourth, education is critical, especially during political oppression. So, if you are educated, if you are holding your language close to your heart, you will be able to escape oppression. You will be able to escape slavery, and you will be able to free yourself, stay free. And yet, one must not take freedom, education, and language for granted, because these are very valuable tools in our lives and hence must be respected. They must be valued. Finally, we have come to the end of the chapter. I hope this video helps you to understand and to grasp the chapter, as well as helps you understand the literary aspects that have been used in this chapter throughout. I have tried to mention everything that could be helpful for various exams, including your board exams, in greatest details possible. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, to share it with your study buddies, to share it with anyone who's preparing for PGT English exams and could be helpful. If you want written notes, you are please join our WhatsApp channels. The first one is for for grades 9 to 12, where I post and it can be helpful for other people who are trying to learn to learn English, because I post over there you can say important grammar rules, and I post over there various summaries of these chapters, character sketches of these of the chapters. So anyone from grade 9 to 12th can join this channel. You have to search for CBSE the Eloquent Explorers. I will also attach the link in the description so that it can be easy for you to look for these channels, and here you will get a whole you can get notes here. You can get information here that will help you create your own notes. Also, for people who are preparing for PGT English for KVS and for AWES, because that's where NCRT is asked the most. It has the most weightage. You can also join this channel so that you can collect the information and create your notes. You can also create notes from this video itself. Then then you can join the other channel, that is English PGT KVS AWES CBSE grade 9 to 12th. This is also run by us, the Eloquent Explorers. In this channel, on this channel, I only post daily quizzes, 5 quizzes daily. So you can attempt those quizzes and you can practice whatever you have learned. And Target PGT English, DSSSB, EMRS, and NVS is a channel that is for people who are preparing for exams like DSSSB, EMRS, and NVS that revolve around syllabus from PG level and UG level of English. So here again I post quizzes, so you're most welcome to join these channels and to answer those quizzes and to solve and practice for your own exams. I hope you liked the lecture, and with this I take your leave until the next lecture. See you. Take care.